Hey! Hey everyone! Oh, thank you. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Brilliant. Great. So, hello and welcome to Town at Eastbourne's live making workshop. My name is Amy and this workshop is part of the hashtag the Postal Exchange series. So, the hashtag Postal Exchange series is a project taking place over August and September and is a collaboration, it's a collaboration between myself and artist Rachel McGivern as part of the Town at Eastbourne's hashtag makeshift studio. Hello everyone. Hey. So we've been taking it in turns, Rachel and I, to send each other parcels in the post of everyday objects that you might find in your own homes. And these objects have been inspiring us and triggering our material and sort of making processes. Hello! Aww. So these are shared in a series of fortnightly live workshops like this one, and there are 4 in total, and this is the second one in the Postal Exchange series. So thank you for tuning in. Oh, it's great to see everyone. So last time, Rachel explored a set of cutlery in a fantastic printmaking workshop, which I definitely recommend checking out. So you can find it on this Instagram account, which is at hello_towner. You can find it on Town at Eastbourne's website and Facebook. And in this workshop, I'll be exploring these interesting objects. So we've got a lovely metal sink plug and some metal scourers that Rachel has sent me in the post. So I've been experimenting a little bit with light, pulling pieces apart, seeing how they're made, and just looking at the texture and just exploring these objects. So yeah, this has inspired me to look around my own kitchen and see what interesting forms and objects I can find myself. Hello! So you are very welcome to join me today in making along, or feel free to watch and hopefully be inspired. Okay, so before we start making, just a few gentle reminders for today. Everyone is very welcome to take part, but if you're a child, please ask an adult to work with you and follow any safety making tips. Please do ask permission before you borrow things, and when choosing extra materials, which we will be doing in this workshop, when choosing extra materials, please don't choose anything that's sharp, precious or breakable. And feel free, as you've been doing already, to use the comment section at the bottom if you have any questions or want to share any of your ideas or you're up to. It'd be great. If you're watching the recorded version, feel free to pause at different stages of the making. That might be useful. Okay, so the materials we are going to need today for our paper shape play activity are, we're going to need some paper and card. So this can be plain or colourful, scrap bits are good. We are going to need a few interesting objects. So I'm going to start off with the metal sink plug and the scourers that Rachel sent. But I've also had a little hunt around the kitchen and I found this nice spoon with a kind of crocodile clip handle. This other nice flat spoon. So Rachel used spoons in her printmaking workshop, so we're a big fan of them. A little cookie cutter, oh, can you see that? One of these funny spoons. So these objects can kind of be anything that you think are interesting. They don't have to come from your kitchen necessarily. You could just have a little look around for interesting forms and shapes, a potato masher, around your home. Again, please do ask permission if they're not yours and if you're borrowing it. What's this? Oh, a good question. What's this spoon for? Which spoon? I'm not really sure what any of these spoons do really. I think this one's a coffee one. But hello! So we've got a selection of interesting objects. This one might be for pasta, maybe. I'm also not really sure how to use this, so if anyone has any ideas, but I do love it as an object. So, hello. So we're going to need some paper, card, and some interesting objects. We might all be working with really different things, so and you don't need masses of objects. You might just want to choose to work with one, which is totally fine. I'll be showing a couple of techniques which you can use for any object, so hopefully you have an object. We've got a comment that says bring back the rubber gloves. I agree, fantastic object. We're also going to need a pen or pencil, do a little bit of drawing. We're going to need a pair of scissors, something for the top of your mobile. So I've got a pair of chopsticks. But this perhaps could be an extra pen or pencil that you have. It could be a nice twig. You could think, if you want to go bigger scale, maybe a coat hanger or something else, but I'm just going to use a pair of chopsticks. So that will be for the top of the mobile, which we'll be doing in a bit. And we're going to need a light source. So this could be the sun. It's quite sunny today. Or it could be a lamp or a torch. It depends on where you are. And optional but helpful things for today are paper clips, a glue stick, a ruler, and a hole puncher. So these are optional. You don't necessarily have to have these bits, but if you do, that's great. Hello everyone. So if everyone's got their materials, if you'd like to make along today, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to explore our object's form and just what they're made out of. So have a little look and handle your objects. I don't pay very much attention to these objects, so it's probably the first time that I'm really looking at a sink plug or I'm really looking at a spoon. So this is made out of 3 parts. It's pretty shiny. Just one single bit of plastic that's been formed. So have a bit of a handle of your objects, see how they're made. If it's possible, you could even pull your objects apart. Just be careful, as some objects might be sharp. This might be a little bit sharp to pull apart, but this kind of gives you a better idea of how they've been made, maybe if it's an option. And we are going to, using our card and paper, we're going to start drawing forms and shapes inspired by our objects. So I'm just going to get my paper and a pen. So it's up to you. If you feel like drawing freehand, you're very welcome to, and if you're in the mood to do that, go for it. But I think I'm going to try some other ways of drawing. But if you just want to pop your object in front of you and start drawing it onto your paper and card, that's brilliant. So if you've got an object that lends itself maybe to this technique, you could trace around it like a stencil. So this spoon is really super flat. I think it might be used for coffee or something, or just for stirring. So I'm going to draw around it. So we've got a kind of record of our object. And even if you've got an object that isn't flat or completely flat, you could try maybe holding it and smushing it against your paper and seeing what kind of things, what kind of forms emerge. Kind of like blobby cloud, maybe. So have a play around with your objects, and if it makes sense to trace around them, and if you'd like to, you can go ahead and do that. Another technique of recording your object's form, or what you think makes it really interesting, is using a light source. So this could be a torch or the sun. I'm just going to switch this light on. Whoa. We're going to use the light and our object. I'll start off with this one to record its shape via its shadow. So the closer it is to your light, the sort of more blurry and bigger it is, and as we move away from the light and towards your paper, you can sort of see the forms emerging. Have a play around with what angles. It's totally up to you, and it also depends on what object you have. But this one kind of gives quite a few options of things. So maybe I'm going to try and attempt to draw this kind of umbrella-ish shape. Oh, it's quite big, that one. Oh, yeah. So I'm going to try and trace around this umbrella shape that it's created. I'm doing this quite quickly, so feel free to take your time and pop your paper on a table so it's nice and flat. But it's a sort of like claw shape that we've got going on. Maybe I'll just finish off like there. Spend as much time as you like playing with shadows and your objects. So I looked at the spoon earlier and tried drawing as many sort of configurations by turning it in the light and sort of seeing what kind of shadows it would cast. Oh, brilliant. We've got a comment that says that you're tracing your own shadows too. Excellent. It's really sunny today, so I'm sure if you're out in the sun or by a window, it'd be great. Okay, so you've got lots of different options using the lamp. Maybe I'll try using the potato masher and seeing what kind of shadows it casts. They do look a little bit like jungle leaves, don't they? So I'm going to angle my light down onto my paper. Hopefully you can still sort of see it. Okay. And I love this object, but it might be a little bit hard to trace around. So we could go for the classic all of the lines, or maybe angle it so it becomes a bit more of a cloud, or a bit more of like a caterpillar or a worm. Oh, that's good. I wish I was left-handed. So I'm just drawing around. So that's produced a kind of funny cloud shape. So take your time with drawing around your shadows, seeing what they create. Ooh. Another funny cloud shape created by this. Great. And another technique for sort of recording your objects, if there's a particular part of it that you like. So my favourite part of this spoon are the sort of alligator jaws. Hello everyone. So I'm going to just use my pen and just draw some of those zigzags onto my page. And I'm going to play with the scale because they're quite small. I'm going to make them maybe bigger on my paper so they show up a bit more. So you can have a go at drawing your own shapes. Oh, and maybe leave a little bit of space between them so they don't overlap because we're going to cut them out. Should have mentioned that. If you have another technique for recording an object, do let us know in the comments. I can see that you're adding to them. That's brilliant. Great. So once you've got a couple of shapes, next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut them out. So just make sure when you're cutting that your fingers aren't anywhere near the blade. So I'm just going to start off this one, and I'm doing this quite quickly, but please do take your time. Actually, sometimes when you're cutting, the offcuts, so the bits that aren't your object, are more interesting than your object itself, so feel free to use them too. Okay, so we're just cutting out some of our objects. one here. Looks a little bit like a claw. I might just do another one here. And as you're cutting, new shapes and new things might emerge. So I think just go for it. If like a new pattern emerges, and if you like a particular shape, you could always trace around that shape or double up your paper so you've got two of them when you cut them out. You've got a funny little cloud and a claw shape so far. I think I'm going to save the rest of my shapes and just pop them to the side, but maybe I'll cut them out later and show you a few more ideas for paper cutting. So if you're like, oh, maybe I don't want to draw today, maybe I want to just go ahead and cut things out straight away, here are some techniques, some paper cutting techniques that you might be interested in. Like with this object, I really love it. It's so brilliant. It makes like a fantastic noise. And I just love all the holes, but I'm not really, I don't really fancy drawing all of the holes out. So a kind of shortcut way of doing it, I'm going to draw around the object to get its basic shape again. And then I'm going to, so we've got a circle here. I'm going to cut around it. So we've got paper version. Cool. And then to try and create the holes, I'm going to first fold it in half, so it's a semicircle, a little bit like a taco. And then I'm going to fold it again into quarters, so it's a bit like a crepe, or you could fold it into like a pizza slice, but I think I'm going to leave it as is. And I'm just going to use my hole punch to punch through and create the holes going all the way through the paper. Oh, can it reach? Great. And then we're going to unfold our paper. And we've got something that's a little bit inspired by our original object. And this technique, you've probably done something a little bit similar around sort of winter time when you're making snowflake decorations. Another couple of examples that use this technique. With this one I tried punching as many holes as possible, and this one I stuck to a certain pattern, so it's a little bit more orderly. So new things might emerge as you sort of go through these processes. You can also use this technique, this is just a freestyle one, but I folded it, sort of zigzag folded it, and then started cutting out shapes, and then unfolded it to get a pattern, and the same for this one. So it's like a little grid pattern. So wherever the process sort of takes you, you might find something new as you go along. So, and just another paper cutting, sort of paper manipulation technique is using lots of paper strips. So if you have paper that you're happy to cut up into strips, I definitely recommend going for it, because you could, these are particularly useful. I'm quite inspired by how this object is formed. When I took it apart, I realised it was just loads and loads of like swirls, like this never-ending kind of never-ending sort of loop. So you could create your own loop by sort of very carefully rolling one end, so it rolls up into a snail and into a fossil, and then you've kind of got a curl, a bit like this one. Or a shortcut version, which I've been doing, is I've been using a ruler, got the paper strip in one hand, ruler in the other, thumb up here, and just doing it really carefully so you don't get any paper cuts, but really carefully slowly pulling the paper strip under your thumb. Oh, off it goes. So you've got a kind of instant swirl. And once you have more than one of them, if you wanted to, you could connect it up with your glue and you could create more structures. So it's somewhat sort of inspired by this lovely metal scourer. You could also use your paper strips to make a zigzag. So if you just concertina fold them, instead of drawing a zigzag, you could just create it out of paper straight away. And then you could stick them together. This is sort of inspired by this object. And you can also use your paper strips to maybe mould them against your object. You could wrap them. I've got this little cookie cutter, so I could if I took my time, I could kind of wrap the paper strip around, cut it at a certain point, and I'd have more or less something that resembled a little bit of the star shape. Oh, it looks a bit like a hexagon. That's nice. But if I spent a bit more time with it, I could sort of replicate that shape a bit more. So there are a couple of options, and if you've got any others as you kind of work through your materials and your objects, do let us know. So we're steadily building a collection of paper shapes and experiments. Some of them might not turn out the way you want them to, which is totally fine, and you might discover something new along the way. They might also not look anything like your original objects, or you might want to challenge yourself and replicate an object completely in paper as accurately as possible. But mine so far are pretty abstract, so I guess it's up to you, like however direct and explicit you want your paper shape to reference your object is up to you. There's not really a wrong or right. So I've got a few shapes, and I'll just, for the next part, maybe I'll just use a few shapes that I've made beforehand. Okay, so we've got a few paper shapes here. This one is inspired by a whisk, and it just uses paper strips again and a paper clip. Got this little funny piece inspired by a cheese grater. And we've got this version of the potato masher, which we sort of explored a little bit earlier. So once you've got your collection of paper shapes, and it's up to you however many you want, it's up to you what you do with them. So you could make a collage, you could maybe start putting them together you could stick them on your window, you could add it to your environment, you could make a sculpture out of it, or you could turn them into a costume, or it's totally up to you what you do with your paper shapes. But I am going to go ahead and make a mobile. So if you'd like to join me on this section, you're very welcome to. Or if you're making, you've got your own ideas, that's great. So first thing we're going to do I'm just going to put my paper shapes to one side. For our mobile, we're going to need the top of it. I'm going to use a pair of chopsticks. You might be using a twig or something. I'm going to use a bit of string to tie the pair of chopsticks, which are crossed together, sort of at the middle. I'm going to tie them together. You can also use an elastic band if you have one. This bit is a little bit fiddly, so if you've got an extra pair of hands or an assistant, now's a good time. So a couple of knots. So you're making the top of our mobile. Great, so we've got those two tied together. this could act as the top really, as a loop, or I might put another bit of ribbon or something. So we've got the top of our mobile, and we're just going to attach our paper shapes with some string. If your paper shapes have holes in them already, it might be quite easy just to loop a little bit of string or wool or whatever you've got through those holes. Double knot them if you like, and then knot them onto your mobile. If your objects don't have any holes, or it's a little bit trickier to see how they could fit onto your mobile, I recommend either a bit of masking tape or a paper clip. I'm going to use a paper clip so I can move it around a little bit more if I want to rearrange. Paper clip on your shape, bit of string, tying that string to your paper clip and then tying it to your mobile. So this might take a little bit of time, it's a little bit fiddly. And as you arrange your pieces on your mobile, you could think about composition, you could think about different lengths of string, different colours if you're working with coloured paper. You could think about balance and how things sort of fit together. So I'm just going to tie a few more on, but I do think I'll show you a few examples as well that I've made already. It might inspire you with your own pieces. So got some curly shapes. Okay, cool. So I've got 4 objects so far. We can test them out with the light if I put the lamp on and see what it looks like. So it's sort of the beginnings of our shadow mobiles. But I'll show you a few more that are a little bit more finished. We've got a great comment that says everything looks so bouncy. They do look quite bouncy. I think they sort of like float, don't they? Okay, I'm going to get out of the way of the screen and show you a few that I made earlier. I've got this one. And if you wanted to, you can use an additional torch and you can create a spotlight for different sections, and it creates like a double shadow. This one is just made out of curly shapes. And we've also got this one. Cool. So I'm gonna continue with this one and seeing if I can finish it maybe. But yeah, I really encourage you to, if you're making along and making a shadow mobile today, maybe you could play around with a torch, pop it in a particularly sunny spot. Maybe you could see how big you can get the shadows to be, or how it changes throughout the day and how the light changes, how it changes your space and how it makes you feel. So yeah, loads of options. I'm going to continue with this one, and we'd love to see how yours turns out, or whatever you're making with your paper shapes. So please do feel free to share them, tagging us at hello_towner and using the hashtag makeshiftstudio and the hashtag the postal exchange. So just remember, if you're sharing photos of anyone else, to ask them before you do it. and look out for the next postal object reveal on Hello Tana, which will be coming out next Monday. I've sent some objects in the post to Rachel. And the next workshop is on the 3rd of September. And if you've missed anything from today or previous sessions, there are downloadable making guides. Just follow the link in the bio of @hello_Tana. So feel free to check out any of our previous live making workshops. And a massive thank you for joining us today. It's been great to see you all, and yeah, hope to see you again soon. Thank you. See you later.